Hi, and welcome to a special edition of Just Jamila. I'm your host, Jamila Russell, and I am privileged to be joined by the current Lieutenant Governor, Tregenza Roach, Esquire, who is a candidate on the Democratic Party's ballot for Governor of the United States Virgin Islands. And this video is live to tape, so it will not be edited. And it's only because, as y'all know, the show is popular. Everybody's trying to come on a Saturday morning. I just don't have enough Saturdays to be able to share the information with you, my beloved audience. And so we're going to tape this and we're going to have an open, honest discussion with Tregenza Roach, the Honorable Tregenza Roach. Good afternoon.
Good
Hi.
afternoon.
And
Good to
thank
be
you.
here. Thank you.
Oh, so you're running for governor of the Virgin Islands.
Yes, I am.
And you're currently serving as the Lieutenant Governor of the Virgin Islands.
Second term.
And as you are aware, there has not been any successful lieutenant governor who has ran subsequent to their term as lieutenant governor to ascend to governor of the Virgin Islands. What was your thought process, given those statistics? What made you decide to, hey, I can be the one that breaks this tradition?
Well, to be honest with you, I never thought about it in that way.
Okay.
I know it's a fact, but if you live your life that way, because something has always gone on a particular trajectory, so you won't go there, then you won't know what might await you. So that didn't really factor into my decision. But what actually, because it was a very difficult decision for me, and it took a long time making that decision. From the second term when we were running, that's 22, right? People were asking me, what happens next?
Okay.
And they were talking as if the election were already over, that Albert and I had already won. And I'd be like, no, don't take that for granted. Whatever you feel about it, you need to go there, do whatever you got to do, and make sure that that happens. You can talk to me after. And they were asking the question as if it was the most natural thing for me to run for governor, having served the 2 terms. And the weight of the office was one of the first things that I thought about. It is a 365-day, 24/7 responsibility. You can't take a vacation because if anything happens while you're on, then you know you got to come back home. So the Virgin Islands is always with you when you're governor or when you're lieutenant governor, right? But as time passed and I got to see what the field would be like, because the names were being circulated, people were already running.
From 2022.
Essentially running already. And I had to face that question about where the universe puts you. And for me, as a person who has made the Virgin Islands my home, because I think most everybody know that I'm not a native-born Virgin Islander. For a person who has made the Virgin Islands my home, and I'm an island person, I don't want to live in the United States. If I were not living here, I'd live on some other island. But this is where I want to live. Either St. John, St. Thomas, or St. Croix. This is where I want to live. And my thinking was, the Virgin Islands people, by accepting you the first time as their senator, the second, the third, the first lieutenant governor, the second lieutenant governor term, have really, the people, their love and goodwill, have really made you into the type of leader that you are, the type of person that you are, and you are invested in what the leadership of this place should be. And looking at the projects that we're going to begin, because you know in each administration you begin projects and then they're completed. The projects that we're going to begin, I wanted to see them come to fruition. And I also wanted the opportunity to let the place of my home see the full play of my personality. I think they had begun to see some of it in the legislature. I served 3 terms, and I wanted to serve more, actually. I think I wanted them to get more a sense of who I am. Because leadership isn't about, or the governorship, I think, isn't just about buildings and institutions. It's about making people feel a certain way, making people want to be their best or want to give the best to a place. We say we love this place, right? And we still walk on garbage on the street, right? How do you inspire people to want this place to be the best that they can be? And I think all of that is tied up in leadership. You know, now you go to the lieutenant governor's office and you collect your taxes. We'll be at $1 billion by the time I'm done with the 8 years, right? You transform it. But the opportunity to provide a leadership from a place of where you consider your values to be. You know, when we talk about crime, once upon a time I said to somebody, we have crime like that because we don't practice love enough. And they think that's some kind of nebulous, like esoteric kind of thing. But I say to people all the time, you know, you are responsible for the place where you live. You are responsible by your actions, because it's literally like the pebble and the creek and tossing the pebble and the ripples. So when I say to you in the morning, when I first encounter you and I say, Jamila, I'm so glad to see you, as opposed to, Jamila, you have on the same thing from last week, or you put on weight, or, you know, whatever those things can be. That is where this comes from. I didn't look at it and say, this person lost or that person lost or whatever. I looked at it as, you have a responsibility to put yourself in a place of leadership, because you've learned a lot. You have absorbed a lot, and you have a lot to give. And let the people decide if that's a cycle that is unbreakable, or you're the one that breaks it. Whichever way.
That's very interesting. You know, I study history, and I would have thought, and I'm glad that you didn't make the decision based on fear, because a lot of people be like, you know, fearful to take that next step. Now, after you made the decision, you said it was a heavy decision for you to make. How did you go around selecting your running mate? Or did you naturally gravitate when you made this decision? You already knew who you wanted to be on the ticket with?
No, I didn't know. But I'll tell you a joke. When we were in the 32nd legislature, because Novell came in the 31st, and we served together the 31st and the 32nd. So one day, and of course they're the Democratic majority, I'm an independent, no party senator. So one day he said something, right? And my way of sharing, because I teach, you can't teach anybody if you ridicule them. You can't teach anybody if you expose them in a way that's not flattering. If you want to really help somebody, it has to be earnest. And he said something. And I got up from where I was, like across the aisle, as they say. And I walked over to him and I said, could I tell you something? And he said, sure. I said, you see what you just said? You should never say it again. You should find a different way. And he appreciated that. And I went back and I took my seat, right? That was an exchange that was between us. And after that, it disappeared. Never repeated to a person what the content was ever, right? And one day, we were joking about something. All of us were talking. And I said, you know, one day you and I are going to make a good team, you know. And he laughed. And I think Violet was there and he laughed too. So when it came around that I decided to run with Albert, Violet said, you know, that could be a good team, you know. Because Albert would come before us as the Commissioner of Labor, you know, and all of that. And so Novell went, well, what happened to me? And I said, I never said when. Right?
That's interesting.
Right. True story, absolutely. So I think people came to me because I had heard rumors that Novell was going to be running. as governor himself, and one of my strong supporters in the St. Thomas St. John district, who is absolutely fearless and will defend me to her dying breath, right? She went to confront him to tell him that she thought he and I would make a good team.
Okay.
And he said to her, the lieutenant governor is the only person who I would run second to.
Wow.
So when she brought that back to me, I said, wow, Noel said that. And so I went to him and I asked him about it. And he's an honest and forthright person. And he said, yeah, I told her that.
Okay.
So, and then it was kind of like, well, we ought to talk about that.
Okay.
And conversation after conversation after conversation, we got to the point where I said to him, you would really benefit from being the lieutenant governor to somebody who has been a lieutenant governor.
Okay.
I would know how to treat you. Because that place where you say you are second, it's a very interesting place to be. I know what that feels like. And I will treat you the way that you should be treated in this space. Number one. And number two, I would be this awesome resource for you. Because I've spent 8 years learning this office. I know every person in it. I know every issue in it. And I would be of great assistance to you, number one. Number two, I'm going to tell you this truth. You won't find anybody with as well-adjusted an ego as I have. Because at 16 years of age, I decided to love myself. I decided that the world was going to be enough of a place where people would beat up on you and you couldn't beat up on yourself. So when I say that to you, I say that I never have to prove myself to be smarter than you. I never have to prove myself to be anything because I feel secure in who I am. So if you bring a particular expertise to the table, trust me, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to pay attention to what it is you bring there.
And you made a very interesting point, and I want to talk about two things that you just mentioned. A lot of us don't learn to love ourselves, and you said you learned to love yourself at 16. That's commendable. I don't think I started loving Jamila until, that's why I rebranded my show, because my show was originally called What's Going On, you know, and when I started to love myself, I rebranded my show. I'm just Jamila, and I'm good being Jamila when I look in the mirror. So it took me a longer time to love who I am as a person. I'm glad that you were able to do so at such a young age. And I wanted to instill that in my boys, just to love themselves and just to be who they are and love who they are as people. So I think that's an important point. And the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was, you mentioned about being able to treat the lieutenant governor how they should be treated. I've listened to all of the debates, and I know that some of your opponents have brought up the fact that decisions were being made, and you've responded by saying that there's only one governor. And as somebody who kind of understands government and understands relationships between governors and lieutenant governors, like I said, I study history, and some of them haven't been the most amicable, to say the least.
I've witnessed that.
And yeah. How, you said you've been there, so you want to treat them better. How do you propose doing that? Because, the Revised Organic Act gives our governor, this huge amount of power. How can you temper or manage that amount of power in how you treat how you want to treat your lieutenant? Because, there's a saying that says power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. How are you going to manage you said you don't have an ego, but
no, a healthy one.
You have a healthy
That's
ego.
Correct.
But there's some who thinks that it's not the ego that gets you in problem, but your id that gets you in problem. How are you going to manage your ego and your id to make sure that your lieutenant governor, who comes from St. Croix, because Crucians are legitimately concerned about the state of St. Croix? How are you going to manage that to make sure that he's involved in the decision-making process in a Roach Francis administration?
Well, the first part I think is mindfulness. The first part is to really be aware of all of those pieces. The other piece of it is the people, because the people construct this powerful person as well. So everywhere you go, if I enter the room first, a lot of attention. If the governor steps in, the attention shifts right away. So the people do that too. So you have so many things to keep in mind as you're trying to figure out how to be this person. And this mindfulness first tells you that you don't have this power for you. It's not a power for you. It's a power for a time, and it's a power to be useful. It's not a power to live in you in exchange for something else. So if you come to the power already loving yourself, already thinking well of yourself, you are powerful already. And that's what I mean when I talk about ego. I feel I'm already powerful.
Okay.
I don't need the position to make me powerful as a human being. The position works for me to do the best for the place that I love and for the people who I share it with. So if you are mindful already about the fact that people they want you to sign things, they want you to give them raises, they want you to give their grandchildren jobs or their cousins or whatever. So gov, it can be overwhelming. Because I've watched it. Part of the second is that you watch and you see this happening. Hopefully you learn from it, right?
Yes.
So you have to then know, okay, I have the power to help. And I help. That doesn't elevate me above. And what I tell people is, if Novella and I say, we're going to be partners in this is going to be a partnership. It is not a legal partnership. It's a partnership that we have constructed because we have told people that we're going to utilize the expertise of each person. And when I say to you that I'm going to utilize the expertise of him, I'm obligated to do that.
Okay.
Because I'm very, very mindful of my word. As a person who writes, you don't get no heap of text from me, because I write very little. What I do write, though, is commitment. And what I speak is commitment. But I think it begins with mindfulness. To control your perception of this power and what it comes to you at a particular time to accomplish. It isn't self-aggrandizing.
Okay.
Right?
And so many people get into politics just for personal gain, and we've seen that historically happen here in the territory. Now, open disclosure: when you first ran with now Governor Albert Ryan, I was part of the MAP administration.
You're disclosing it to them or to me? Because I know that part already.
To the listening audience. And one of my qualms with you was I didn't think you liked St. Croix very much. And so, if it's one thing, I try not to be hypocritical. And I didn't think that you liked St. Croix. And as a Crucian, I want to know, if the people of the Virgin Islands were to elect you as the next governor of these Virgin Islands, do you have a vision, a plan for St. Croix? Because, we hear all of this stuff about there's only one government coffers, but I tell people, well, all of the money may be going into the general fund. There's two different economies, and people in the St. Thomas St. John district, you can have multiple jobs. There's opportunities. While housing prices may be expensive, you do have a little bit more options in terms of generating income for your family, building generational wealth. On St. Croix, it's very limited, and our incomes and our economies look a little bit different. What plans do you have for my beloved home? And why should people of St. Croix consider you to be the governor?
So first, let me tell you about St. Croix and me.
Okay.
I was very disheartened that that was a narrative that was being written, because I left St. Kitts when I was 8.
Okay.
And that was my parents' decision.
Okay.
And that's what happens in a child in migration. And there was a lot of nostalgia. I left my grandparents who raised me. But one of the things that was imprinted on me from that time was the environment, the landscape of the place where I lived. We lived close to an estate that had cows. It had the copper, the irons, the coppers, and in those it had water and molasses for the cows. And when you walk across something like that, there is an aroma. Molasses has a sweet scent.
It does.
Now, my mother and her brother came to St. Thomas from St. Kitts. And my aunt and my other uncle came to St. Croix.
Okay.
So my aunt lived in Sion Farm, and my uncle lived in Williams Delight.
What's St. Farmer Williams and like that? You?
And I have a much older cousin who we call Aunt Josephine, and she was actually my second cousin. But because of her age, because she was older than Auntie Grace and older than my mother, we called her Aunt Josephine. She was actually my cousin. She lived in Machuchal.
Oh, wow.
So when I came to St. Croix to visit the first time, I came through an estate, and I think it was Carlton.
Okay.
Someplace where they had cane.
Okay.
And I smelled the molasses.
Okay.
You remember you used to come through Center Line, and there was an estate that you came to and you smelled molasses. I don't know if it's by the botanical, it's someplace on Center Line.
Well, we had like a Brugal rum factory was on that stretch.
You smelled the molasses.
Yeah, it had a rum factory up there.
And I felt like I was in St. Kitts.
Okay.
The landscape, the more trees and big trees than St. Thomas. The landscape of it made me feel like I was in St. Kitts. And we came in the summers to Auntie Grace, right? And even more importantly, my great-grandmother, Annie Mason Garvey, left St. Kitts in the Danish times and came to St. Croix.
Okay.
So my great-grandmother, my mother's grandmother, is buried in this soil.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. So this is a sacred place. I think in the narrative,
some people don't know that. So
Yeah,
I'm
a lot
glad
of
that
people don't
I've
know.
never heard that before.
it's a sacred space.
Okay.
I love St. Croix, actually. So, but the paradigm is this. You have this thing of St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. Croix, right? And the St. Croix senators get to do things like they could have a campaign that says St. Croix first. You know St. Thomas people can't do that, right? Right?
So
you okay, Jamila, all right. So
because you know that we have a problem when you do that.
That's correct. So, and they didn't line up. What they did was line up every time I voted no for something that they said was about St. Croix, but they never line up any no's that I voted for St. Thomas and St. John, because I had no's for them as well, right? For some of the majority bills and so forth.
You don't do that in a campaign, you know that. You just line up.
You just pick what suits you.
Yeah,
right.
picks what fits what we want to talk about.
So my vote against Hovenza, when we were talking about the resale, and I felt the government of the Virgin Islands and the people of St. Croix were not getting a fair deal, when I was concerned about the environmental pollution under the surface of that
Your
refinery.
no vote might be a good thing this election, though, because so many people afterwards had issues with Hovenza. But go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
So they lined up the no votes.
Yeah, we did.
Right, and it was one of the few things that you had. You had to paint me that way, and I had to kind of counter it.
Because it was difficult to find, let me just say, and open disclosure, as somebody who is trying to find dirt on you, right? It was so difficult.
Correct.
I tried so hard to not like you. And, the best that I could come up with was, he voted no for this. And so that is true. I did do that on this, especially right here on this radio. I was like, he voted no for Hovenza, he like we.
So I voted no for things like changing the height restriction so that buildings on St. Croix could go to 12 stories or something. I was like, St. Croix is an island. It's a beautiful island. What we want it to look like Miami Beach or whatever. So there were things that I voted no, but in every single instance, I felt that it was legitimate.
Okay.
You know what I think about St. Croix? I think enough people who live in St. Thomas and St. John don't get to experience it. And I think of St. Croix, enough people in St. Croix don't get to visit St. Thomas, St. John. Because you have to, if you want to go St. John from St. Croix, you gotta go St. Thomas. Unless you're gonna go on some rough boat, come around the place. You have to fly and then you gotta take the ferry. So it's not hard, easy to do that in a day and then return to St. Croix. That's hard.
Yeah.
So, and you've heard me speak about this in the legislature. I feel like we could do better together if we could move between our islands easier and more in a way that's more affordable. So, and I made a point all the time. I'm like, I could go to Tortola for dinner and come back the next morning. Or I could go to Tortola for a spend day, go early in the morning and come back the evening. I'm going out of the Virgin Islands. Well, not out of the Virgin Islands, but you know what I mean.
You're going outside of the
Outside
country.
of the US, outside of the country.
You're going outside of the
correct.
country.
Easier.
And for less money.
And for less money.
Yeah.
I could tell you of an instance where I wanted to go to St. Kitts and I couldn't get a flight from St. Thomas to St. Kitts. I took the boat, went to West End, took a taxi from West End, took a Liat flight from Tortola to St. Kitts. And the round trip, I kid you not, was less than buying a one-day American Eagle flight to St. Croix. So my thing is, if you have the bulk of your overnight visitors who stay a week or more coming into St. Thomas, they should be able to take a day trip to St. Croix, come and take some of the money. You see the proof of it when you see the Ag Fair and every boat coming to St. Croix from St. Thomas is loaded.
Yeah.
We would benefit from knowing each other better, spending more time together. So that's one of the things I want to see. This ferry that's going to come, I think if we can schedule it in a way that you can do day trips or really make it a way that benefits the people of St. Croix in terms of movement and having people come from St. Thomas, St. John, that would do a great thing to really make our economy a kind of single economy benefiting from these tourist dollars. I really want us to see the South Shore that Novell has laid out in his legislation developed. And I know that people always talk about St. Croix as agriculture, and sometimes some people resist that idea because it seems like you're either pigeonholing or typecasting the island in one role. But I think when you look at, say, places like Anguilla, where they created this entire kind of tourism product that was like, come and eat from the place that's nurturing you. Come and everything you have on this plate is going to be from St. Croix. The egg, the chicken, the broccoli, the pumpkin, the cucumber, the tomatoes. That has a certain attraction. And
we have the land space
and
for
you
it.
have the land for it.
And we have St. Croix does have a very robust culinary scene.
Yes, and you have already gone from agriculture to the value-added products.
Yes.
Look at the number of products that St. Croix is already making. The soaps, the lotions, the syrups, the jams, any number of products, the crafts that you could think of. Once upon a time, our university that I taught at had this incredible aquaculture program that somehow seems to have vanished. We were teaching fish farming to people from all over the world. When I was at UVI, they were coming here from Greece. They were coming from Mexico.
I remember it was you could see them from the center line Queen Mary Highway. But in terms of the economy, however, in a Roach Francis administration, what do you see St. Croix becoming? Because we have Ocean Point. Hovenza is now Ocean Point. Do you have plans to have discussions with them
We do.
about the restart? What specifically for this district do you think we can look forward to under a Roach Francis administration that will bolster the local economy?
Certainly a more coordinated development and robust development of the South Shore.
Okay.
We do want to look at the refinery and to consider it not just in terms of a refinery, but power production, as well. The transshipment possibilities that come out of the use of the South Shore. We want to see the rum cover over expand by having more spirits, distilled other than rum. Transportation, improved. We want to talk to the regional airlines that contour, that brings people to the Virgin Islands from Dominica and other islands in the Caribbean. Sky High that started but somehow interrupted the services to St. Croix, but continued in St. Thomas. Light manufacturing, more tourism, but tourism targeted at people who are, and matching the type of travel that we see now. St. Croix has kept the culture of the Virgin Islands alive, and the culinary arts certainly are thriving in St. Croix in a different way. And I think when you look at all of those pieces taken together, they construct a very serious and substantive approach to growing this economy. But I really, really feel too that opening it, using the sea as a conduit, because right now, if you have 1 million people coming to overnight, 800 plus thousand of them are going to St. Thomas St. John. And that's significant. That some of that money should actually circulate in this island
On this
district
island
as well.
And I know you talk about the ferry, but what about the local, regional, inter-island type of transport? Any ideas? Because Seabourn filed for bankruptcy. They had, after getting money from the Virgin Islands government, they moved their operations to Puerto Rico. Then they cut services here in the territory. And we only have very limited inter-island flights, and those can be cost prohibitive. Any idea on how you can speak with the Port Authority to ensure that those small inter-island carriers are given some sort of incentive or benefit to be able to reduce the cost of moving people between islands? Because even to move as a government employee, there are times when I just can't get a flight and there's session. And if you don't book it right away, with 7 senators and staff coming from St. Croix, the planes fill up pretty quickly. What are your thoughts around that?
I learned a couple of things when once we were in the legislature and the lease was up for Seabourn at the time. And what we learned was that the port had entered into an exclusive agreement with one seaplane company. There are like 6 in the country. And because they had done an exclusive agreement, it was not considered a port for purposes of federal funding that could be used to maintain it, etc. So one of the things that we thought would happen was we would never do an exclusive agreement again, because the airline wasn't serving the needs of the people because it wasn't affordable. So I think when it comes to that, we need to really look at expanding the seaport, the terminal, and to not have it be an exclusive agreement, to have it open to more possibilities. Like the other one, Sea Flight is also a seaplane.
Yeah, but they have to land on the airport
They have to land at the airport because of that.
Okay.
So that exclusivity, I think, should be really considered when that lease is up, and to expand that port facility to have more than one carrier be able to land there, increase competition in that regard. I think we should also just look at the same way we look at subsidizing routes from the U.S. when we want to increase traffic to our ports, that we should look at whether we can work with airlines similarly for regional travel. That's a piece, and it doesn't have to be, it could be St. Martin, it could be Dominica, it could be St. Kitts, it could be St. Lucia. I think as you listen to meetings like CARICOM and you listen now to the issues coming out of Barbados when the people are talking about reparations and throwing off any connection with England and this Commonwealth idea, I think we're going to see an expansive region that is going to benefit from a lot of interrelations, and we should position ourselves to receive some of that interest and some of that commerce. And if we have to subsidize regional carriers to help bridge that gap, I think it's something that we should.
And what's your thought process? Because the federal highway route, the water has now, between St. Thomas and St. Croix, considered under Federal Transportation Administration a federal route. Have we, or would your administration be amenable into looking at the airline above a certain amount to be considered a route similar to how those islands off of Massachusetts, they have those little regional, Cape Air comes from up there, and to see if you can have any types of subsidies and federal subsidies to be able to provide to carriers, just food for thought as we're having this discussion here.
Certainly
but one thing you mentioned, a word that's been flung around the legislature, as the governor called the legislature into special session on Wednesday, I believe it was, is exclusivity. You spoke about the downside of exclusivity when the port entered into this exclusive contract, which I think is a violation of the Sherman Act, but I didn't go to law school, you did. And some of the side effects, the harmful side effects of having exclusivity here in the territory, just for the sake of getting something here. We're on St. Croix, and there's all this talks about rebuilding the horse track, but part of this, and I know that you're currently not the governor, but the measure that was sent down speaks to increasing the exclusivity of Southland Gaming to restrict the new contract that came down just doesn't speak to VLTs. They speak to all gaming devices, electronic gaming devices. So they've broadened the scope in the new submission to the legislature. What are your thoughts around granting exclusivity, or in general, what is your thought process? Maybe we don't need to be specific about the horse race, but maybe we should. About what are your thought process around exclusivity in the territory, which doesn't drive for competition?
Well, I think each case has to be taken independently and separately. For instance, we have the franchises between the transportation between St. Thomas and St. John, with two local families that have the franchises to do that, with it's shared, but it's exclusivity. I think we have to not make like a hard and fast determination that applies to every situation, and that every situation has to be considered separately. In the instance of horse racing, I get a lot of questions from the residents because you set up the same St. Thomas St. Croix divide. How come we get horse racing in St. Thomas St. John and not on St. Croix? When are you going to get over here? That kind of thing. And I think you have to measure in each instance what the value is. In the case of the port, whether it's worth giving an exclusive contract when you can't access funds to do your maintenance, and then you are taking on that maintenance responsibility. So I think an evaluation of each instance is important, and what the value that is derived from it, that it's expected to be. So I wouldn't want to hard and fast say that I would never consider an exclusive arrangement, but there are times when what you pay for that is more than you should be willing to pay.
Okay, fair enough. But let me ask you this, because in terms of contracts coming down to the legislature, for the lack of a better word, this governor does not have the most amenable, friendly relationship with the legislature. And I think as somebody who's worked in both the executive and the legislative branch, both have to have a mutual respect for each other. How would a Roach Francis team discuss with the legislature? Because a lot of times we found with the current administration in which you serve as the lieutenant governor, there are things that come up. The governor may call the legislature for a meeting. I want to do this. Even if there's concern, you still send it down your way, not taking into consideration what senators may have, the input senators may have provided in a closed door meeting. And then, it becomes acrimonious. How would you approach working, if you're elected, working with the 37th legislature, and how important do you think the relationship will be for driving your success in your first 100 days in office?
Well, the first thing is you're looking at a person who has worked in every branch of this government.
Oh, you worked in a
Every
judicial branch as well?
Absolutely.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That was my first government job
Okay.
when I came to the territorial courts of the Virgin Islands. And having worked there, then the judiciary, then the executive. Well, this is my home.
Okay.
I don't take that lightly, because I think it was so much to give up a first home. It took a lot. So I can't give up a second home.
Okay.
So I want success. And I think one of the things that Novel and I have really talked about is the fact that we know the legislature. We know that every one of those 15 persons, their political future is on the line in the decision making that you have. Each one of those persons has a constituent base. Each one of those persons has a particular political agenda, and all of us at some point want to appear as a winner. So having worked in the body, when I got elected the first time, I was there with friends, Donald Dux Cole, Sean Michael Malone, Millen Young. I was the only no-party senator of 8. There are 8 people in my district, and all of them are in one party. So that's why I ended up over here with Chucky and Positive Nelson and so forth.
Yes.
So I had to, when you are in that place, I'll tell you the other part. One of the other part of having a healthy ego is I never expect anybody to agree with me.
Okay.
I always think I'm going to have to convince you of whatever it is. So I had to shop around. I had to make a relationship with every person, right? And coming from that, I think the governor didn't have that. He ran for governor and he was elected governor. So he didn't have the legislative experience. And every experience is valuable. So I think I don't know if you remember one time the governor said, "I always win," or something to that effect.
Yeah, I stay winning.
And then the legislature just kind of turned it.
Oh yeah, you can't win everything.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you just kind of turned the thing upside down, and now everything you put in, it was a fight.
Yes.
Where you didn't have a fight before, everything now was a fight. I think I recognize that I can't not value and appreciate what their struggle is, because I know it, right? So I think our relationship with the legislature is going to be healthier. Absolutely, I believe that. It doesn't mean that we still won't have friction.
And you
That's
should.
necessary.
It is, very much so.
And unavoidable. But I think we will work better together. And I want to, regardless of whether people are minority or majority senators, always involve them. Bring them into every meeting. Share with everybody, so that you're not singling out just who you think are going to be the ones who.
Yeah, just don't call it 5 people you like up to government house.
Bring everybody into the conversation, and deal with people in a way that shows that you respect what their input is. Now, the other thing is that you're dealing with 15 people. 15
personalities.
Right. So all 15 don't want the same thing.
At all.
So what you send down, you may have to gut it to fit somebody else and then got it back to fit somebody else and then got it all over again. So maybe you just end up and say, you know what, I'm going to send them what I want and then I'll deal with it.
And then y'all deal with it.
Right. And we have different personalities. People think that we are, but you can, if you just talk to the two of us, you will see that we're two very different people.
And you are, because, I interviewed the governor. And we fight the entirety of the show. I mean, we get along, but he throws subliminals all day, and I have to answer him on a regular. But
and the thing is that and that's what people need to understand. We don't have to be alike. I can say to you that I admire certain things about the governor.
Yes.
The governor was one of the persons, one thing he said when we were talking about privilege, right? And how privileged we are who live in this place. And we don't act like we know it all the time. He said, "Would you realize that we don't go to the toilet in water that other people don't have to drink? In clean water. We flush in the toilet from our cistern, and other people are drinking water that's contaminated." That shows a worldview of where other people are and where you need to be. One of the things I admire about the governor is that he didn't wait to the end of his term to pardon people. People who, lots of governors wait till the end. They want those controversial things haunting them. And he has looked at people's records and made decisions about pardoning or commuting sentences while he has been in office, because that may benefit the person. So there are good things to be said.
Yeah, there is.
But we're different people.
You're different.
And I think all of us, all of you who observe it, you know that we're different people.
And I wanted to ask that, and I want to ask about what your 3 major accomplishments will be in your first 100 days. But I also want to ask, because, you're going to be tied to his wins, his losses, his personality issues, whatever those may be. What is the biggest difference between your leadership style and the current governor's leadership style? And how can the people of the Virgin Islands know that when they elect you, they're not just electing a continuation of him, but somebody with a new vision, new ideas for the territory?
Well, first I would describe myself as a humanist.
Okay.
Right? And what I mean by that is I feel people, right?
You're an empath.
Yeah, I feel people.
Okay.
And I am not just interested in the physical quality of life, the resources. I'm interested in who the person is and supporting that. So when we talk about population, for instance, I just don't want to import people. I want to say, well, how do we encourage our young people to have children? Maybe we could subsidize children or something like that, right? Maybe we could subsidize families. Maybe we can talk about building homes for the elderly, or we can talk about how do we support families to keep the elderly at home.
In a home, yeah.
Right? How do we do that? So in thinking like that, those are some of the differences that you will see. And I have a good friend, he died now. But one of the things he said to me one time when we just decided he was going to describe me. And he said, "Tregenza, you don't actually listen to people. You actually listen." And I was like, I never realized you were paying attention to that. But I listen to people. Okay. When we have issues that need to be sorted out and there's some kind of brainstorming, I will hear you. The decision in many instances may still fall on me, but I'm going to hear you. Number one. And number two, I have had remarkable opportunities. All the jobs I've had in this territory I've enjoyed, and I have grown from them. And I want to have that for other people who work with me. I want to make sure that people fit where they go. And I want to, sometimes the same thing with the pardoning, like you don't wait until the next election to move people. Because you think the family is them who if you fire somebody, they ain't gonna vote for you.
So you're good with firing?
You have to make change. You have to move people.
I'm good with firing too. Working. I am an advocate for the firation. Yeah, send them home.
Well, but you gotta make sure you
for cause. For
First
cause.
of all, you got to make sure that they know what your expectations are.
That is true. I
That's
tell
the
people
first
all the
thing.
time, you train people. After you've given them a warning, you develop a corrective action plan. They ain't getting it together, then you fire. I'm just not gonna
So
fire you, but yeah.
the message, you got
Yes.
to make sure they have the message. You got to make sure they have the resources.
Sources, yep.
You got to make sure they know that they're valued
Yep.
and you actually care about their input.
I have to work on that part.
In what you right. But that's how you get people invested.
Yes.
Right? That's how you get them invested because you want them to wake up and want to come to this job, want to solve problems. And I think that's all you'd see. And I think Novell, it is not a marriage of convenience. I mean, to show you how far back, I know him from the police chief.
Okay.
We worked 31st and 32nd legislatures. We spent a year talking about this possibility and how it could work and what some of the benefits of it would be. And so you're going to see that continue. We didn't just go, well, is this person going to bring enough votes in St. Croix to get me elected?
Well, typically,
Or is this one,
yeah.
You see what I'm saying? How people make
Yeah.
those decisions? No, we have actually worked together. We've actually had extensive conversations about how to do this. And we summed up our commitment in one sentence.
Can you
We
share it?
pledge.
Okay. Can you share?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
We pledge to do our very best to improve the quality of life of the people of the Virgin Islands.
Okay. And was that did you do that purposefully, like because of maybe how your relationship was with the governor that you served with, to make sure that that value was there with the person that you chose to be your lieutenant governor?
It was an easy way to sum up a commitment, and I'd be absolute. It came to me at church.
Okay.
You know, we were at the Pastor's Scalpel Church. I
Okay.
never remember the name.
Okay.
But they invited us the first time that I've gone to that church.
Okay.
And you know when you feel something? You know when you really feel like you've been blessed? The people were so awesome at that church.
Okay.
And it came in my head. All you have to do is make people's lives better. Now, there are lots of pieces to it.
Yes.
But if you think if you can sum it up like that, and somebody else buys into it, you're on a path to doing good things.
You know, that's an interesting thing. And you talk about church, and I was talking to my auntie, Mona, and I was telling her, you know, I'm going to interview the lieutenant governor. And she was like, nobody asked about where the faith-based community will be in our territory. Do you have a plan? Because I know, you know, I've seen you on Facebook. You attend church regularly. You see it. You know, you speak it. You see it on your socials. Do you have any plans to engage the faith-based community in terms of addressing some of the social issues here in the territory and getting them involved to a great? I know there's a separation of church and state, but is there any conversation, thought in your head about including that because you're a man of faith?
There was a center at the university under Dr. Hall that I actually was like one of the founding people. I was one of their first directors, employees, whatever you want to call it. And it was the study of spirituality and professionalism.
Okay.
And it centered around the idea that although there's a separation of church and state, people bring their whole selves into the workplace.
We do.
Right. And how do you nurture the spirit of the person? Not in any religious way, because we need spiritual nurturing. I think what I would like to see, and I think Novell shares it because he goes to church probably more than I do, is that we both have a responsibility to people. The church has a responsibility to the people, and the government has a responsibility to the people. How do we support each other in doing it without proselytizing, without forcing faith on anyone that is not responsible? Not responsive to it. And I think it really comes out of the fact that as a child and saying, because there's a thing called release time, and because there was a national religion, Church of England, we were released from school on Wednesdays to go to church.
Okay.
And when I came to St. Thomas, I went to the Seventh-day Adventist school. And part of our school day was religious instruction. So I've always been surrounded. I'm not going to browbeat nobody with Christianity or any other religion, because I actually take from every religion. That mindfulness is a Buddhist concept,
It is.
right? So I'm grounded in it, but I think we can support each other to make our community better, to make our people more grounded, more centered, more loving, more caring for one another. And if we follow the teachings of every religion practically,
It's
we
love.
are stewards.
Yeah.
And we should do it with love.
And our
we can-
our religions have one thing in common: they teach love.
One thing in
The
common.
religion doesn't teach hate; it
That's
teaches
correct.
love. And for those who don't know, the Church of England is actually an offshoot of the Catholic Church, because one of their kings wanted to divorce his wife and marry a next one. Yeah, it was Anne, right? And so he
Henry VIII.
yeah, he was like, the Catholic Church, the Pope,
divorce.
you're no more. I'm going to go get married. So I'm an Anglican, by the way.
And that's where it
Yeah,
came, Church of
the
England,
Church of
yeah.
England, which
The
is the Anglican Church.
Episcopalian.
So yeah, Episcopalian. That's what. Yeah, so I'm a member of the Church of England.
Church of England. Yeah.
So that's where that came from. And that's very interesting that you said those things. And I know that I haven't really talked about a lot of policy, because I don't know you. I've known, your political record, and I have, I attend government functions. I speak to you, and I think I'm getting a better sense of who you are. And so I want to ask you, your first 100 days in office, what can I expect from you? And what can the people of the Virgin Islands expect from you? And I want to thank you for just being so open and honest and answering my sometimes, deep questions.
No, I understand. One of the first things I really want to turn attention to is WAPA. I'm hopeful that in the next few months of this administration, greater change will occur. But the utility affects everybody.
It does.
Even if you have a company and you have solar and you have everything worked out, your employees have to come there to make your business work. And if they can't get their children ready to go to school, and they can't flush a toilet, or they can't stuff, it's not going to work. Because I think our economy depends on it, and your communication. I mean, internet is just our reality now. It's not a choice. It's not a luxury. It's something you have to have.
It's a necessity.
A necessity, even in instruction now.
Yes.
The more we use it in school instruction. So definitely WAPA, particularly that forensic audit that the legislature has tried to get, but looks at the money, looks at where the money is, looks at where we top heavy. The things we used to do. We used to cut the trees so that if a tree fell, it didn't take down a whole,
a whole feeder,
transformer, a whole feeder, whatever the case may be. So looking at that, looking at how we might relieve small businesses some more. We've talked about looking at the gross receipts tax and how we might raise the ceiling of small businesses from that gross 100 and something thousand.
I think it's 225.
To maybe taking it, further up to 250 or something like that. So that I'd like to see. Excuse me. There are also things that I consider the low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
A lot of these departments, there are things that are hanging, whether it's the billing, they're collecting monies that are due to government, that we could almost immediately change the financial situation if we collect all the Wang Louis outstanding bills or so forth. So I'd like to see attention paid to that. And I group all of those together as a low-hanging fruit. Okay. We certainly want to start to look at accountability different. We talked about an office of accountability in terms of how we manage monies, how we pull grant management together, how we standardize our responses to grants, right? And to work on that, to have integrity, restored to our government, particularly in light of some of the things, that we're seeing. How do we restore trust? That's going to be a big thing, helping to restore trust in government. And the way to do that, beefing up your staff at the Office of Inspector General to make sure your white collar crime unit is supported and ferrets out crime, at every level. Those are some of the kinds of things we'd like to see.
And let me ask you, what is your biggest regret, or let me rephrase that. What is the one or two things that you wish you were able to accomplish in the office of the Lieutenant Governor that you have not yet been able to accomplish? And what has been your greatest accomplishment in the office?
Well, the Affordable Care Act meant different things for different people. It meant one thing for the U.S. mainland, and it meant a different thing for the territories. And as a result of not having a health mandate, a health insurance mandate, companies left. You could trace it back 13 years ago. And attracting them back isn't easy because of the size of the pool. But that's one of the things that has kept me up. The uninsured portion of our population that's attributable to things like not having that individual insurance product. We had it for a time. I'm actually now looking at a company that wants to bring it back. So that may happen before we leave office. And if it does, I'll be very, very happy
So would I.
about it. And a lot of people.
Yes.
Because that can affect health costs as well across the board. So that has kept me up.
Okay.
I think one of I love the fact that we took the street addressing system off the shelf and really prioritized it and completed St. John, and now 80 to 90% complete in St. Croix and St. Thomas, because that is an infrastructure item that means a lot. I tell people, when you get from here to there by doing your GPS, people up there who put it. These are the people in my office who have been out on the streets, who've been talking to people in neighborhoods, who've been assisting people in naming streets that create this movement that's good for emergency services, good for business, and good just across the board.
And good for getting packages delivered.
And then the technological changes in our office. I mean, there are places you gotta go in our government where you're still filling out forms by hand. All of our forms are fillable on the internet. You can do your own title search. You can do your own property search. If you live in the States...
I've done some.
I'm speaking...
I've done the... You have to do title search to figure out who running for governor and lieutenant governor and what they own in the Virgin Islands from what they don't own.
Correct.
And some don't own anything.
Correct.
But, that's a different story for a different day. Let me ask you if there's anything that you want to let the people of the Virgin Islands know that I may not have asked. Is there anything that you feel that's on your chest to let us know?
I would say to the people that there's one thing that I have always wanted to be, and I've got to practice it. I'm still trying to grow in it because I don't know that there's any perfection of it, is that I've always wanted to be a poet.
A poet?
That's the thing I've always wanted to be from childhood. But when I first learned what a poem is and the value of writing, and you know why? It's because the poet can't pretend.
It's all in the words.
Yeah, the poet can't pretend. You can't write about what you don't know. People will feel it, and people will feel the imposter in it. And you can't speak one thing and be another. So you have to be true to your word. And if you take that across disciplines, you take that across professions, if you can make a pledge that if you speak it, it is so, you will serve every profession well. That's what I would share with them.
That's an interesting thought. My favorite poem is Annabelle Lee, and I can't remember the name of the Emily Dickinson poem, but it's because I could not stop for death, death stopped for me. I'm sure you know both poems.
Yes.
Beautifully written. See, I know a little thing too, you know.
I see that. I see that.
But I want to thank you. I know that I can be a little bit scary sometimes to to people seeking office, but I want to thank you for stopping into Just Jamila and allowing me to get to know you, because I feel like I know you a little bit better, and I hope that the people of the Virgin Islands get to know you just a little bit more after viewing this. So I want to say thank you and tell the people your name, your number on the ballot. And
My name is Tregenza Roach, and I'm running with a senator from the District of St. Croix.
who I happen to actually like.
So you like the two of us? Yeah,
Yes,
this
I
is
do.
fantastic.
I like both of you.
And his
I do.
name is Novell Francis. So
Junior.
we put the two to Junior, Novell E. Francis
Junior, yes.
And so we had a Roach Francis team. And we actually reached into an envelope and picked the number one.
Yeah.
So we're number one on your ballot, and I think that means the best team. We have the same number one, right? Pound for pound, we're the best team. The type of public service that we have both engaged in, Nobel many of us could put our life on the line
I wasn't doing
to
it.
protect our community
I
for
wasn't doing it.
decades.
I wasn't doing it.
That's a lot.
That's a
A
lot.
lot of commitment. And his public service in other areas, his entrepreneurship, which makes him familiar with the challenges, particularly of small businesses. Having worked in every branch of this government, we're both intimately familiar with how government works, and we are prepared to hit the ground running on day one. No learning curves.
All right.
Ready to serve.
Well, I thank you for this opportunity, and good luck.
Thank you.
And best of luck.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Early voting continues, and primaries on August 1st. And the school children say whoever wins Saturday is the next governor of the Virgin Islands. So good luck to you and your running mate. And this has been Just Jamila. I don't know how to be anybody but Just Jamila. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.